Guys, what's going on? Adam from Taexotics, welcome to the channel. Something a bit different today. I had a request to do a sort of how do you breed ball pythons sort of video. Now there's going to be 100 videos out there, maybe even more, that are going to explain this process a lot better than I can, in a lot more professional way. So do your research, don't just take solely on what I'm going to tell you. This isn't a how to breed ball pythons, it's how I breed my ball pythons video. So you might see some of the information I'm going to give, might not apply to you, it might be different to what you've read, and that's fine. There's a million different ways to do the same thing, as I'm sure most of you are aware. This is just the way that it works for me, it's the way I do it, and what works. I've had my most successful season so far. I'm up to 13 clutches with another 1 or 2 to come. That's the most I've ever produced, so what I'm doing obviously works. So if you do hear something that you don't quite like the sound of, that's fine. You don't need to give me any shitty comments because there's just no need for it. This is just my experience, what works for me, and it's not me telling you how you should breed yours. So let's just get that out of the way. So how do we breed ball pythons here at Taexotics? Well, quite simple really. You need your male and your female. Breeding weights for me, females need to be at least 1500 grams. I don't just wait till they hit 1500 and boom, they're in a breeding program. It doesn't quite work like that. They need the weight, they need the age. Usually their third winter they're old enough, but I've bred their second, and a lot of people have bred their second. They can be up to weight in the first year, but that's with power feeding. That's not an animal you want to breed. That's just going to have disastrous consequences for that female. Because that weight is mostly going to be fat, it's mostly going to be weight that she doesn't need to be carrying during a pregnancy, if you like. So around 1500 grams, but they've got to be lean, they've got to be a nice animal when you hold, they've got to feel chunky. Prime example, I had a female, pastel female that I was going to breed. She was 1485, but she looked alright, she looked big enough. Although she didn't hit that quite, that 1500 mark, she looked big enough, but I decided to pull her out of the breeding process because I just weren't happy with it. So she had one lock, and that was it back in December. And then last week I looked in there and she was sitting on a clutch of eggs. So it's not to say that they can't breed smaller, they can obviously in the wild. They don't cruise around Africa going, sorry, I'm not 1500 grams yet, you can't, it doesn't work like that. If the animal's ready, if she's receptive to a male, then she's ready. But we as breeders have just got to be cautious because we can get things like egg binding and things like that down the road, and that's why we want a proper weight. So how do I do it here? Okay, so you can either cool your animals or you don't have to. I've always been a fan of cooling. I just think it gives them that extra kick up the arse, if you like, to get them into that breeding sort of mode. The reason we do that is to try and simulate as best as possible the conditions out in the wild. It obviously lets them know that winter is coming, it's time to breed. Why do animals like breeding in the winter? Simple, so their babies are born in the spring, where the food is plentiful. Obviously there's going to be a lot more food in the spring for animals than there are in the winter. And in some countries and in some with some animals it's to do with the wet season. I think Burmese pythons and things like that also lay at certain times, so their babies are born just after or just before the wet season. It's just so they obviously, because they make their nests underground and stuff, so they don't get flooded. It's extraordinary really. You'd have to Google that and just try and get a bit more information on that, because I'm not sure if I'm saying it right. But I'm not a fan now of cooling, because I had a really bad experience last year with some RIs, which I put directly down to me dropping the temps. Maybe it was a bit too cold outside, and me dropping the temps as well didn't help. I had 7 or 8 females and a couple of males, all have RIs. It cost a fortune in antibiotics, and it's not something I want to do again. So this was my first year in the new room, in the new house, in the log cabin. So I thought to myself, I'm not gonna do the temps anymore, I'm just gonna start breeding. So what I do 1st of November is when I start my pairing. Now I didn't change any temps whatsoever. The only temperature difference was the ambient temperature, which was depending on what the weather was outside. If it got too cold in here, I do have an oil-filled radiator that I just blast for a couple of hours, but that's about it. My room stays For example, now my room at the moment is 76.5, which is fine for them. It's fine for me to work in. Any hotter than that, then I'm going to be absolutely dying in here, and it's fine for them. So 1st November is when I will start pairing. If you are going to call my awesome artwork, so you're going to start calling around the 1st of October is when you're going to drop temps, and you're going to drop temps around you know, 3 or 4 or 5 degrees or so, but you're going to do it over the course of a week. You're not going to sort of switch it down, maybe 1 or 2 degrees per night until you get to the temperature you want to do. Do that for about a month before you actually start pairing. So they've had a month of that continuous temperature drop. They should be triggered enough to know, okay, it's time to start breeding. Let's look for a male, and that's where we're going to put the male to her, and she's going to think, well, it's my lucky day, and hopefully we get some breeding. So that's the dates for those. That's what I follow. So now we've started pairing in November. We're going to start breeding and pairing until around February. This is what I do. So in November to February you're going to start breeding. What you'll read is a lot of the times people say make sure that female is bred once every shed cycle, and yeah, that's true, but only really applies if you're using one male to breed a lot of females. But if you're only breeding a couple of females, or 1 male to 2 or 3 females, I don't think you need to wait so long as to every shed cycle. I would probably breed my females, or breed my males to my females, once every 2 or 3 weeks, for 3 or 4 days, or shorter if I witness a copulation. But that's just how I do it. It obviously works, and there's various different ways you can do it, but if you're using backup males, then obviously that female's going to be bred more. You're not going to want to breed 1 male to her 1 shed cycle, wait a whole shed cycle to breed that other backup male to her. This doesn't work like that, unless you're working with a ton of animals, which I'm obviously not. I don't do that, so I make sure my females get bred by a male every 2 to 3 weeks. So after that, if you are calling, so down the bottom here, you're going to want to start bringing your temps back up around Valentine's Day is what I used to do. It's just a memorable day to sort of trigger when to bring those temps up. So those temps will slowly come back up. You're not going to just whip them back up to normal. Again, as if the same as you were dropping them, you're going to slowly 1 or 2 degrees every day, just crank it back up to what it originally was before you started dropping the temps. So what's next? So in February, between February and March, that's when I expect to see my ovulations. Now, majority of my females will ovulate in this time, and obviously I've got to be really on the ball trying to catch them. There's nothing worse than missing an ovulation and thinking that the female's reabsorbed or not ovulated. So seeing that ovulation is a key point in the breeding process. It means you're bang on track. It means she's going to give you a clutch, guaranteed. It's either going to be slugs or they're going to be viable eggs. But once ovulation has happened, they can't reabsorb anymore. It's there's only one way for those eggs to come out, and that's the way we want them to come out, either as eggs or as slugs. So you're going to keep pairing until you see an ovulation, because obviously if you've missed it, you might not know you've missed it. If you haven't quite got there and you think she has ovulated, it just takes all the guess and work out. So keep pairing until you know you've witnessed an ovulation, or keep pairing if you think you've missed it until the female has no interest, because once the female has ovulated, she will show no interest in that male. The male will show no interest in her, and they will be at a completely different size of the tub or the tank or the vivarium or whatever you're keeping them in, and that's a telltale sign. If they're not gonna be courting and be trying to get the job done, then you can probably be safe at that time of year to assume that she's ovulated, and she doesn't want that male anywhere near her anymore. Okay guys, so we've done the ovulation. That's a very important part of the breeding process. One of the best parts of the breeding process obviously is the actual egg laying. That can be really fun, and this can vary. The timings can vary a great deal. As I said, I've got females that have still to give me eggs clutches that are already established and eating, but it's all bred at the same time, all started in November. So that just shows you how different all these animals can be, and it is down to the individual animal to, you know, ultimately when she wants to go out those eggs. So egg laying I expect from April to May on average, or the majority of between April and May. So after that ovulation, you're going to look for about, I think it's about, with me, it's about 3 weeks, just over 3 weeks or so, till you get that pre-lay shed. Then after that pre-lay shed, it's roughly around the same again, give or take a few days, till you actually see eggs. This is a really fun part of the thing. So April to May is when I expect most of my females to lay. Remember, this is not an exact science, and it's ultimately up to the individual animal when she wants to give up those eggs, and that's true enough, guys. We can only do so much, a bit of paper can only tell you so much, but it's down to the actual snakes when they actually want to give you these eggs. And we've got to be patient, and we've got to wait for them to let us know when they're ready, and they will when they're ready, obviously. So you got your eggs. Eggs for me, they go in the incubator, obviously. I don't maternal incubate. I'm not a fan of it. I'm sure they can all do it, but I just think, be safe. There's not chance, you know, those potential valuable eggs being incubated internally, because if, you know, a number of things can go wrong, and I'd rather artificially incubate them where I can control the temps perfectly. So I usually see eggs hatch between day 50 and day 56, 57. I've had eggs pip as early as day 49. I will not let my eggs go past day 58. As I say, because with my incubator, with my setup, I usually see eggs on average between day 50, 55-ish, 56, around that sort of time. So you'll normally cut on day 55 as long as I get one pipper. If I don't get any pips, I will cut the whole clutch on day 58 just to make sure there's no issues inside with, you know, lack of egg tooths or umbilical twisting and things like that. But I normally wait for at least one pipper, preferably two. But once I get 1 or 2 pips, I know the whole clutch is ready. And I am an advocate of cutting. I do cut my eggs. Yes, it's to see what's inside there, but more importantly, and you know, people will say this all the time and they don't get believed, but more importantly, it is to save any, you know, babies potentially with problems. With the amount of eggs that I produce, I'm going to encounter problems. You know, I'm sure a couple of them would have had problems inside had I not cut the eggs. And it's very safe to do as long as you're doing it in the correct way. And there's tons of videos out there, including some of mine, that you can go back on and watch some egg cutting. If you're going to do it for the first time, just please have someone with you that's done it before, that could possibly show you. There's no practice like live practice, what I say. It's very easy to tell someone how to do it, but you know, having an egg in the hand and a pair of scissors, I think is a key. You know, you need to be able to have someone at the back of you just saying, you know, cut there, don't cut there, look out for this. It's invaluable. So please, if you're going to cut eggs, please surround yourself with someone who knows what they're doing. After those eggs have hatched, what I do, they all come out of the incubator once they're all out the egg. They all go into their egg tub on damp paper towel. Some people leave them in the incubator all the way up till their first shed, which is fine, not the way I like to do it. I like to separate them into one of the tubs here, damp paper towel, and sort of wait till they're all shed. Once they've all shed, I will then sex them, mark them up in their individual tubs, give them a feeding card, and then we're off. What comes after that? Well, obviously the first shed. So the first shed will come, I see, in between 7 and 14 days after they've hatched. But again, exception to the rule, I've got a female that's probably 19 days after hatching and she's not shed yet, which is quite amazing. I've never had that, you know, happen to me before. That again goes to show how different these animals can be, and I've said it before, it's not an exact science. So people, you know, get worried about, oh, you know, they're taking slightly longer to hatch, or they're taking slightly longer to shed or to feed. It's all absolute normal and within the acceptable boundaries of what we're doing here. So once they have shed, when do we feed? Now, I would normally feed or offer the first feed around a week after that shed. By that time, the egg yolk that they've been using to sustain themselves from birth should have dried up by now, should have all been absorbed and gone, and they should be ready for that first feed. So, just to recap, June and July is when I either see hatchlings or I cut myself, but that is sort of the baby season for me. This is when I will expect most of my eggs to hatch. I cut on day 55. If I have a pipper, if I have no pippers, I will cut on day 58, like I said. That's just how I do it. Some of you guys might not like that, but it's the way I do it. What works for me. I get to fill up my rack with healthy babies, so it absolutely. Now, what I've put here is exactly what works for me. It might not be what you've read up before or what you do, but it's what works for me. So wait until after the first shed before you offer food. I think that's obvious. The baby ball pythons are still relying on the yolk from the egg at this point. After the shed, offer the foods item of your choice with the method of your choice. And what do I mean by that? It's basically, some people like to feed live for the first feed. Some people like to feed live, which I have done in the past. I still do, not all of them, but you know, a live baby multi is probably, in my eyes, the best way to jumpstart that sort of instinct into hunting, you know, the hunting mode, into feeding. Some people don't. Some people go straight for frozen full, which is absolutely fine. That's just the way I do it. I'm very proud of the way I do it. It results in nice healthy babies. I only offer the very first feed live, but that's not to all of them, but majority of them, the very first feed live, and then they're straight onto pre-killed. As I breed most of all of my rodents exclusively here, I'm able to offer pre-killed rodents, and I think that's just the next best thing from live. You know, I love my rats. My kids love the rats. We interact with the rats all the time, but they're there for a purpose. So again, I don't need any hate messages saying I'm evil for feeding rats. If this is the wrong video for you, if you're even contemplating typing that in the comments down below. But I'll entertain it. If you want to do that, I'll entertain it. But yeah, it's very easy for me to offer a pre-killed rodent, and if that snake doesn't want it, I can then put it in the freezer for another time. When I used to buy frozen rodents in and I'd offer it to a snake and they wouldn't feed, if I didn't have anything else for that rodent to be fed to size wise, that rodent's going in the bin, and that's such a waste of life. And like I said, my rats are very clever rats. They're very you know, they're very playful. They're handled daily, more than once a day, by the kids, and I'd hate to think that they died for no reason. Ultimately, the snakes have got to eat. They're my passion. They're my #1 priority. Unfortunately, like, you know, a lot of people say they don't eat carrots. This is what they eat. So it's just part of life, and it's not the best part of the hobby, but it is a main part of it, and we've just got to get over that sort of barrier. When we, you know, snakes go hand in hand with rats. Unfortunately, that's just the case of it. So that's pretty much what I do here at taexotics. It's nothing major, it's not rocket science. A few key dates there for you to look out, so you can rewind and pause and write them down if you like. I'll also try and put a step-by-step guide down below with dates in. Again, that, you know, just works for me. It's not how to breed your ball pythons, it's how I breed my ball pythons. So if you can take any information from that, then fantastic. So guys, that's going to be about it for this video. I'm praying that answered a few of you guys' questions. If it didn't, please shoot me a message on Instagram or via email at taexotics@googlemail.com or gmail.com, whichever you want to use, and I'd be more than happy to go into a bit more detail with you regarding the things that I do here. But that's about it in a nutshell. That's how I breed ball pythons. It's worked for me, it's working for me, the proof is in the pudding, and that's about it, guys. So I hope you guys are having an amazing season. Obviously Doncaster's coming up real soon, so I'm looking forward to meeting a few of you guys there. It's going to be a really awesome show. I'm probably looking forward to this show more than any other one that I've been to. I can't quite put my finger on why, but it's just going to be an awesome show. I can feel it. So if you guys are going there, come say hi. I'm going to have some stickers there. Give you guys some stickers if you want some, that is. And we'll just have a good time. Let's talk snakes, let's talk anything reptile. It's going to be awesome. So guys, thanks for watching. Thanks for your support. You guys have been amazing, and it means the world to me to have your support doing this. It's not an easy thing to do, this YouTube lark, but you guys make it so worthwhile. So until next time, guys, thanks for watching, and I'll see you soon.